My name is Michael Nicolaides, and I'm currently a student enrolled in the University of Melbourne Masters of International Education degree. As part of the third assessment, I will endeavour to explain how my planning document, where we are in place and time, can be enacted by the theory that underpins it. For the purpose of this task, I have selected the following elements that have informed my understanding of how to plan a successful unit of inquiry using the following elements. I'm going to look into the key concept, one element from the 5 essential elements, student agency, and assessment. These will be linked to the written, the taught, and the assessed curriculum using the new enhanced PYP framework. The International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program is a leading curriculum framework for international primary education. Designed for schools with students aged from 3 to 12, the PYP focuses on the development of the whole child as an inquirer, both in the classroom and the world outside. With its rigorous research and inquiry-based curriculum, the PYP transforms schools' pedagogical practices, placing teachers, students, and leaders in the core of the program. As a result, students become active, caring, and lifelong learners who demonstrate respect for themselves and others and have the capacity to participate in the world around them. PYP students are not only well prepared for the next stage of education, but also for the participation in the IB Middle Years program, the MYP, and subsequently the diploma program, the DP, or the career-related program. Before I explain how certain theories underpin the planning process, let's look into the history of the IB. You see, when discussing the primary years program, it is important to be aware that in the early 1990s, 2 educational initiatives, both related to international education, had very different goals, but they were running simultaneously. One emanating from the work of the International Schools Curriculum Project, ISCP, and the other being discussed with the International Baccalaureate, the IB. These goals had a marked effect on the world of international education. In 1994, the ISCP was published, and it had already included components that had become an enduring part of the PYP curriculum. One could say that the model consisted of 3 components: the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the assessed curriculum. It incorporated the essential elements of concepts, skills, attitudes, and action. We know that inquiry was a pedagogical approach, and it also offered a template to support planning, and this was often referred to as a topic planner. Okay, let's move on to the new enhanced curriculum and take a look at how the certain aspects and elements drive collaborative planning. In order to understand how this website works, I've broken up the components into the new enhanced curriculum: the learner, learning and teaching, and the learning community. For the purpose of this assessment, let's begin here. Through acknowledging and aiming to foster the diverse capacities, IB schools implemented the primary years program to ensure that learning was engaging, relevant, challenging, and significant. A transdisciplinary approach encapsulates these aspects of learning, and we know that transdisciplinary learning in the PYP conveys learning that has relevance between, across, and beyond subjects. This is often linked to learning and teaching. So let's take a deeper look into the written curriculum. The International Baccalaureate Primary Years program balances the acquisition of significant and relevant knowledge and skills, the development of conceptual understandings, the formation of personal positive attitudes, and the capacity to take responsible actions. Now, we know that the PYP addresses students' academic needs, encourages students to develop independence, supports students' effort to gain understandings of the world, and it helps students to establish personal values. In this component, we understand that the IB PYP framework comprises of those 5 essential elements: attitudes, knowledge, key concepts, skills, and action. And for the purpose of this assessment, we're going to take a deeper look into key concepts and how key concepts drive a unit of inquiry. Here, students explore through structured inquiry in order to develop coherent, in-depth understanding and which have relevance both with and beyond those subject areas. The role of the key concepts. We know that concepts provide structure for the exploration of significant and authentic content. Students deepen their understanding of the concepts and learn to think conceptually. We know that the PYP key concepts consist of form, function, causation, change, connection, perspective, responsibility, and reflection. And these are transdisciplinary and they increase coherence across the curriculum. Referring to a previous unit on where we are in place and time, students co-created the central idea of migration may be a response to challenges and opportunities. These key concepts, the key concepts they made connections to were perspective, what are the points of view, causation, why it is like it is, and change, how is it changing. So let's take a look at our actual PYP planner. You can see here that the central idea was co-created by the children, as were the lines of inquiry. And these lines of inquiry were connected specifically to a key concept lens. So that therefore the children were using the key concept of, for example, causation, and looking through that lens into how migration contributes to the culture and economy of a country. Or they used the key concept of perspective and used that lens to look into the controversy and different perspectives surrounding migration. In my opinion, I do believe that key concepts have a significant and relevant role when it comes to planning a unit of inquiry. And it's really important for children to be able to see those clear links from a key concept to a line of inquiry and how that drives planning. And if these key concepts aren't unpacked with children and explicitly taught how to use the key concepts to their benefit, then we're really setting these children up to fail if it's not unpacked. They need to be explicitly modelled, explicitly taught. Children need to understand why we use key concepts and how these key concepts help to drive a successful, coherent unit of inquiry. So let's go back and refer back to our week 4, a concept-driven curriculum. In making the PYP happen, it states that by identifying concepts that have relevance with each subject area and across and beyond all subject areas, the concepts provide a structure for the exploration of significantly and authentic content. In the course of this exploration, students deepen their understanding of concepts. Using a conceptual lens to integrate thinking, conceptual ideas are commonly referred to as enduring understandings, as Wiggins and McTighe mentioned, essential understandings, as Erickson noted, or the big idea in today's educational jargon. The IB refers to these conceptual understandings as those central ideas and statements of inquiry, which these are backed up by the lines of inquiries, which are examined through a key concept lens. Okay, let's go back to the PYP model. And let's move over to the learning community. In the learning community, the IB connects a worldwide community of learners who celebrate a common humanity and a shared belief that education can build a better and more peaceful world. This is done, together the learning community lives peacefully. They assume shared responsibility and they support everyone to be principled, caring and reflective. Let's move over to the talk curriculum. We know that the PYP is committed to structured, purposeful inquiry that engages students actively in their own learning. The program supports students' efforts to construct meaning from the world around them, and this is done through providing provocations through new experiences. So if we go back to the written curriculum, where we examine the key concepts, we can make clear links to the provocations. In this instance, this provocation video was designed to challenge the students' initial thinking in regards to the central idea, migration may be a response to challenges and opportunities. Let's have a look at a short snippet.
As we begin our next unit of inquiry into where we are in place and time, we're going to inquire into our central idea, migration may be a response to challenges and opportunities. And to get you thinking about this unit of inquiry, we're going to start with our provocation. Now, in this instance, our provocation is designed to challenge you and to get you thinking about this unit of inquiry. And what we actually want you to do is to go home and tap into your parents' knowledge and understanding of migration and their journey. Every person's story has its own unique thread, and we're interested in your family's experiences. Before you share your story, it might be a good idea to start reading some of the other stories mentioned on My Place.
Now I'll stop it there, but I encourage you to go back and have a look at the entirety of the provocation video and how we use it to drive and challenge students' initial thinking to gain interest and enthusiasm for this unit of inquiry. Okay, let's go back to the taught curriculum. In this particular instance, the second element that I'm going to focus on is the notion of student agency. And the approach respects students developing ideas about how the world works. It encourages them to question, consider, and refine their understanding of the social and the natural world. In here, collaboration is a key part of planning for schools implementing the PYP. We need to find ways to meet the needs and interests of every student. So let's take a look at the theory that underpins student agency. Now Bandura, let's look back at week 5 of our current subject curriculum frameworks in the IB, from attitudes to agency. Conceptualized by Bandura in the social cognitive theory, agency enables people to play a part in their self-development, adaptation, and self-renewal within changing times. And in the exercise of human agency through collective efficacy, he identified 3 different forms: personal agency, which is exercised individually, their own; proxy, where it can be socially mediated; and collective agency, where desired outcomes are only achievable through interdependent efforts. In the new enhanced curriculum, it is strongly linked to self-efficacy, where an individual's belief in their capabilities to organise and execute the course of action requires to produce given attainments. The belief is connected to agency because the stronger sense of self-efficacy, the greater likelihood that the individual will exercise agency. Speaking from personal experience, I can say that Alamander College classifies ourselves as a thinking school. Our teaching and learning programs involve all students and introduces tools such as de Bono's and the thinking hats, and Socrative questioning methods, Bloom's taxonomy. Together, we integrate digital pedagogies throughout the curriculum, as we acknowledge that there's a push for digital pedagogies to be a driving force for implementing an international education. Learners actively take responsibility for their own learning when they're involved in discussions, when they're actively engaged, when they apply their understanding of concepts, when they make connections to real world, when they have an active voice and stake in the community, and when they face challenges that are given the freedom to overcome them or fail, and when they're risk takers. The other notion of agency is driven through the learner profile, the attributes of the learner profile. If we take a look at this following image, agency is where we put agency into context. We must hear the children's voice, allow them to have choice, and allow them to take ownership over their learning. Okay. Let's take a look back at the PYP model and move over to the learner. Within this component of the enhanced curriculum, keeping in mind though that the learner, learning and teaching, and the learning community work together. They're not singly taught. It is a collaboration of 3 components that make up the IB. Throughout the PYP, a student is an agent for their own and others' learning through the concept of learner agency. Learner agency is connected to a student's belief in their ability to succeed. They inquire, wonder, and theorise about themselves, others, and the world around them. They develop multi-layered perceptions and understandings. So therefore, let's take a deeper look into the learner and its connection to the assessed curriculum at an independent level. The assessed curriculum explains how teachers go about gathering and analysing information about student performance. The purposes of assessment are to promote student learning and provide information about student learning. Here, the primary years program, the IB helps teachers, the primary year school program, to identify what students know, understand, and can do at various levels. It's viewed as a continuous journey. Teachers use a wide range of assessment strategies where they need to look at the understanding of the concepts, the acquisition of knowledge, the mastering of skills, the development of positive attitudes, and the ability to take responsible action. Here is an example of Nikhil after receiving permission from his parents to use this in the website. He talks about the importance of student agency, assessment, and the role of key concepts when being involved in planning a unit of inquiry. I'm not going to play it for the purpose of this assessment, however, you may go back and you can view it later at your own discretion. The importance of utilising the backwards by design model when creating a planner is really, really important. It's important to have the end goal in sight in order to be able to see, okay, if this is what we want our children to achieve, then what do we need to do before that to assist them in order to achieve that goal? So this is why we create our summative assessment first, and then we build our unit around our summative assessment. In order to do that, we created a week-by-week overview of what might be able to be taught and shared. So here we can see examples of discipline areas in number, measurement, geometry, and statistics and probability, and then we have our literacy as well. The characteristics of effective assessment is mentioned by Harlan and Johnson, where they say that it needs to be holistically integrated. Therefore, it needs to be authentic, clear and specific, varied, developmental, collaborative, interactive, and consist of feedback or feed forward. For the purpose of this assessment, we're going to take a look at week 8's coursework and look into lights, camera, action, where we talk about encouraging an in-depth collaborative inquiry where the children create a collaborative project known as the PYP exhibition. It involves students working collaboratively. They synthesize the essential elements of the PYP, and teachers provide a powerful and authentic process to allow children to achieve their goals. Now we know that there are no year level expectations. No one is at, on, or above or below expectations, but simply every student is at a level of development defined by what learning is developmentally appropriate. We've already spoken about the backwards by design process by Wiggins and McTighe, and how the assessment philosophy encourages teachers to design assessment by first identifying the desired knowledge, and we mentioned that earlier. My only concern about the exhibition and assessing the exhibition is depending upon what teachers are actually assessing. If they're assessing the final product, then I fear that it's not truly assessment at its best. However, if they're assessing the way the children use the 5 essential elements and bring it all together, then that is a different story, and that is effective assessment. So let's take a look at my appraisal of the International Baccalaureate agency component. For me, agency is not just about acting, but about acting in the service of goals that are determined to be advantageous. Deciding what is advantageous is contextual and value-laden in ways that affect how people of different backgrounds perform and perceive agency. There are many working definitions, and we know that. For me, a subset of voices stood for questioning the cultural frame of reference that informs how each of us understand agency. Even if we can find a consensus around theoretical definition for student agency, are we all going to agree on what it looks like in action? More specifically, in what ways might a student's identity, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other factors, shape their expression of agency? In what ways might adult socio-cultural identities influence how we perceive student agency? As educators, we must consider these questions with urgency, because otherwise we risk viewing student agency through a dominant cultural frame of reference. For me, this multi-part definition of agency clears the air by allowing me to situate related terms like voice, choice, and ownership as valid pieces that fit within the larger whole. I'd like to quickly showcase a thinking routine used by Nicolaides, where he talks clearly through his process or his learning and how this benefits him. Here's a quick snapshot.
Hi, I'm Nikhil, and I'm going to talk today about how thinking routines are linked to maths. To start off, my example piece is a video about terminating and recurring decimals. So, let's start off with our thinking routines. So our first thinking routine is going to be compass point. So this thinking routine exposes you to how you feel about a specific topic. So this thinking routine works as we all know the 4 main sides of a compass, right? North, east, west, and south. So this thinking routine changes these 4 main sides into north equals need to know, east equals excited, west equals worried, and south equals strategy. So, as an example, let's do need to know. So, maybe we can say, why is there a dot on top of the recurring number? Why can't there just be a normal 3 dots behind it?
Here is an example of the referencing list that I had used. And thank you.